talk, and we'll move on to our third paper, a final paper of the session, which is by Marta Selleri from the Department of Classical Philology and Italian Studies in the University of Bologna. Marta graduated in March 2022 from the Department of Classical Philology and Italian Studies in Bologna with the thesis on her the classical myth as narrated by Mino Milani. She's supervised by Valentina Garoli, and she is going to talk to us today about what she's been working on, which is the Adventurous myth of Mino Milani. So over to you, Marta.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much also for the speaker before me. Today, as you said, I would just like to give an impression of my thesis and of the work that I did in my thesis, which is about the classical myth, as you said, narrated by Mino Milani. And in this work, I analyzed the 3 novels written by Mino Milani and published between 1993 and 1995, that are La storia di Dedalo Icaro, La storia di Orfeo Euridice, and La storia di Ulisse Argo. So the tale of Daedalus and Icaro, Orfeo and Eurydice, and Ulysses and Argo. And I analyzed these 3 novels on a philological and literary point of view, but also I tried to do it in a pedagogical way and with pedagogical instrument. Mino Milani was a children's books writer who was born in Italy in 1928 and who died a few months ago. And he was a very prolific author, and he wrote novels, comic strips, and very different kind of books that were, we can say, that are all held together by the ability and the desire to stage adventure. And also in this specific context, as we are going to see, when he narrates myth, is able to do it also in an adventurous way. For today's presentation, I would like to use this map that I drew, that, as you can see, is not historically correct nor geographically correct, but I think can shows some connection and some point that I would like to underline today. At first, this map is occupied by the sea. This main part is occupied by the sea. That is a very important role in all our heroes' stories, but also it's a symbolic things, is a symbolic place to take for the adventure, because I think the adventure can take place in the sea, and it happened for our characters. And also, according to the pedagogist Antonio Faetti, in his works about adventure, he underlines a lot how adventure have to take place in a elsewhere, so in a place different from everyday life, and where only there, in this elsewhere, a real and deep growth is possible. So to show you a bit here from the left, okay, here there is Ticino, that is the river of Pavia. This is Mino Milani at the age of 15, more or less. And I imagine this river bringing Mino Milani into the Greek Sea, where he met these characters and the protagonist of the myth. And as Mino Milani said, fu il Ticino a farmi conoscere la bellezza, l'avventura, il silenzio, forse qualche rischio, soprattutto la solitudine. So it was Ticino that introduced me to beauty, adventure, silence, perhaps few risks, above all, solitude. And so we can try to follow a bit the journey of Mino Milani until the Greek myth and the Greek Sea. The second things of this map that I think it can underline is, as you can see, that it's not there are not only toponyms on this map, but I had some words, as we saw, that can offer an impression of how Mino Milani works and how Mino Milani elaborated the material and the sources, because it's very rich, as you can imagine, it's very rich in intertextual allusion and references. and he can actually restoring this deep stratification of his stories, because his sources are not only the classical sources, Homer, Ovid, Virgil, and many others, but I think Milani is also able to take into account of this author that's been transmitted to us, and to make huge amount of reference to also other authors, first of all to Dante, but also Thomas Mann, Gluck, Manzoni, and so on. So just to give another example, I wrote on the sea three expression who can define the sea. That is l'alto mare aperto. This is Dante from Inferno 26, when Ulysses is talking about his last journey and his death. And then Caerula Aqua, that is Ovid, Metamorphosis 8, and it's the color of the sea in the moment of the death of Icarus, and Il mare verde azzurro. That is how Milani actually translated this expression in this very moment of Icarus' death. Milani never used in his book L'Alto Mare Aperto, it was here, but he refers many points to this Dante's book, and I think it's a very important reference, so I decided to make it more explicit by writing it down. So Milani arrives in this sea and he meets Ulysses, that is wandering for years. All this, the Milani's Ulysses is very close to his dog Argo, and all the stories is about their friendship. And also the thing that I would like to say for Ulysses, for Milani's Ulysses, the real adventure in this case was in Ithaca, in the wood in Ithaca with his dog, because his growth was actually taking place there. And he leaves Ithaca to go to Troia and so on, only because of sense of duty, but he doesn't really want to leave it. Very different from it is Orpheus, that also crossed the sea, but his mood is very different, we could say, because Orpheus, for Orpheus, the sea is really the place of the adventure and the place that is calling him. Antonio Faetti, that we have already mentioned, really underlined the importance of the calling of adventure as one of the elements that can make adventure real. For Orpheus, the adventure take place with the Argonauts journey. And here we can see these are the mountains where Orfeo was born, and he left because ecco chi lo chiamava l'avventura. So that was what was calling him the adventure. And so then the map shows some place, some stage of the journey of Orpheus and Ulysses also. But now I just would like also to focus a bit on the place on the sea as a place of death. We have just heard about Icarus. I would go again on this topic because I think can be useful to understand also how Milani behaved in using Dante and other sources. Because in the sea, both died Icaro here and also here in Athens, Talo or Perdix died, killed by Daedalus. But I would just like to focus on the fall of Icarus. Milani, in the last chapter of the book about Daedalus and Icarus, used more times two words that connect him very close to Dante, that are flight, volo, and insane, folle. And Dante, in his books, in Inferno 26, appoints the journey of Ulysses as an folle volo, insane flight. And also Milani in this page refers and talks a lot about the natural laws and the human limits that Daedalus and Icarus are overcoming And I actually think the connection between these pages and Dante are very close in a lexical and semantic point of view. And the interesting thing that I want to underline is how, in this case, Icarus is taking a characteristic of Dante's Ulysses that Milani didn't represent in his own Ulysses. And to show also this, I wrote here at the beginning of the journey, we can say, of Icarus, ardore chiebi a divenir del mondo esperto, that the desire that I had to become expert of the world, to know the world, that is from Dante Inferno 26, is Ulysses who is talking, and this desire, this willing to know the world, is actually referred by Milani to Icarus. And both of them, both Dante's Ulysses and Milani's Icarus, died in the water, and their bodies are covered by the waves of the sea. So also, once again, Milani never used this quotation in his text in an explicit way, but I wanted to show it. Actually, these are few. There are also other quotations on this map and other things we could say, but I think we could stop here if there are any questions or whatever.